let's see how it looks so far.
If you've ever done a school paper, been in a group research assignment, or I would hope, had an original idea, you would know the feeling of having what you thought was your idea being done to death, or done some different way. For me, making videos is the same kind of thing. Seems like every idea possible has been done on the site. This sentiment is especially true for the gaming side of YouTube. No idea has been untouched, and I truly mean that. I sat in my chair for 15 minutes straight trying to think of an original idea, but none of them were original. Except for one, checkpoints. My favorite part about playing video games is that no matter what, there will always be a checkpoint I can count on. No matter how challenging the game becomes, there will always be a place where I can save my progress and rest for a bit. That even if I just close the game and leave for eternity, I can just continue. No game I can think of, except for online games, doesn't use checkpoints in some way. Checkpoints are universal. What is your game without them? Torture device? It isn't possible to make a fun, enjoyable game without utilizing checkpoints. It gives the game that much needed balance, kind of like peanut butter and jelly, cereal and milk, spaghetti and meatballs. Could you imagine cereal without milk? Even in games that are more casual, such as Stardew Valley, having saves to fall back on is always great. After long hours or day of work, they provide that much needed break to do other things, going outside, switching to another game, sulking in your room. They also serve the purpose to choose different ventures, the option to change how you play the game or to simply go back and start all over again. A wonderful implementation of this is the chapter system, where after completing a series of levels, the player unlocks the levels to play from the start. Although this is not really a save in the traditional sense, it still provides a means to fall back on, in case your saves somehow become corrupted. Automatic saves are great too, and have mostly become the norm as a result. It may bait you a little bit at first, thinking that all the work you put into the game was for nothing, but have no fear. The game secretly saved your game, or at least hid it in the corner. Now your progress has been kept, and you don't have to interact with some annoying UI to do so. The point has been made. Saves and checkpoints are amazing, and I would personally they didn't exist, especially for some games I've played in the past. We tend to ignore them and treat them as a background element, not giving them the uttermost respect they deserve. We have become too used to them. In fact, no checkpoints. Sometimes I wonder what life would be like if certain things were never invented. What would the video game landscape/market be without checkpoints? What if they were introduced much later, say 2011? How drastically would it change how we approach and play video games? If anywhere is a good place to start, I would definitely start off with difficulty. The first thing that came to my mind was that aspect. Removing the ability to save the game would drastically change the difficulty and speed of the game, focusing on perfection instead of repetition. There's no going back, you have to do it all in one go. Even worse, games that utilize difficulty options would have to scrap that ability. What's the point in choosing your ability when every difficulty has the same stakes? If I put my difficulty on easy and died right at the end of the game, I'd probably throw my computer out of a window. Same thing with hard. An interesting side effect of removing checkpoints is how it affects each genre. For example, calming, relaxing casual games like Stardew Valley would become a nightmare to play. It was designed with hours of playtime in mind. Completing the entire game in one day would be absurd. However, that challenge could be spun into something more interesting, like seeing how far you can max out your garden before the game crashes. Indie platformer games like Celeste would become infinitely harder, even if the length of the game was reduced. You would have to master the game and learn every little intricate detail about it to complete it, even if that means dying a million times. Alongside difficulty comes quality. Is the game even fun anymore? Here's an interesting hypothetical. What if Super Mario Bros. Had no save? Super Mario Bros. Was for many an introduction into gaming. It balances somewhat hard difficulty by automatically saving the level you are on when you die. Granted, only for as many lives as you had. When you remove that save and instantly start the player over at the beginning when they die, that becomes a very frustrating experience, almost like an early version of getting over it. It would have most likely warded off everyone from playing the game, and it might have dismayed people from the console altogether. Remember, Super Mario Bros. Was the first platformer game. Nobody had ever played anything quite like it before. Do you think that Nintendo could have saved the video game market then? Will we even have any video games to play today? See how removing one minuscule detail from a game could have dire consequences? But that's not to say that games without checkpoints or saves can't have good quality. Believe it or not, there are games out there with no checkpoints, and they've been very popular this past decade. I'll use Benny Foddy's Getting Over It as an example since that was kind of the start of them all. The point of this game is to make you angry, kind of like what I said earlier. By making the game somewhat long and using an annoying mechanic with no checkpoints at all, you create an extremely unsatisfying game, and an extremely satisfying ending. When you do inevitably reach the end, you will feel a sense of accomplishment and joy that not many games can replicate. Climbing up that mountain, you start an unforgettable journey that is aided with great music and narration. Can't forget the reactions and laughter that this game produced, which Bennett was specifically looking for. He knew this would be a great game for content creators, streamers, YouTubers to play because of the short length and rage-inducing gameplay, even asking the player at the end of the game if they were recording. It was something unique, much needed for the video game industry at the time. For what the game lacked, on purpose, it made up for in other parts. It took the no checkpoints gimmick and showed that you can make an objectively good game utilizing it. With the success of the game came many shallow imitations. You know, games like Chained Together. I can go on and on about these games and how they've ruined what Bennett had laid out, but I already did that in another video. You should go watch it. Anyways, removing saves and checkpoints can alter a game, either in a bad or a good way. The way they alter the game depends on the developer's vision for their game. Either way, we should appreciate them for providing a much needed rest. They turn us away from playing video games all day and balance the game out to provide the ideal experience to us. Let's utilize this gimmick in one of my levels for my game so we can further assess the deeper implications and effects. This is my level. I based it off of Mirror's Edge, and as you can see, if you scroll past here, there are no checkpoints at all throughout the whole level, which designing around has been pretty unique in my opinion, and I think it kind of made my level better. So as you're playing this level and you die, you spawn here, and one of the things I've done to combat having no checkpoints is having infinite lives. No matter what, when you die, you will always spawn back here. There's no game over and you will never restart from the true beginning of the game, which in my opinion solves the biggest issue with having no checkpoints. And also, if you pay attention to the length, it's not terribly long compared to some other levels out there. It's pretty long, but it's not very long. Also, the difficulty is pretty hard. So like I said earlier, you have to focus on perfection and making sure that when you play this, you know every little detail about it. So one of the main things that I want to add in this level as well is that there will be a timer like this. It'll be a timer like that, but the time will be more strict. It'll have less time. So you have to complete the level perfectly. You have to go through all of this without dying once, which I think makes for a fun challenge. When I was playing through it, instead of it being, you know, I guess you can say torturous or how I expected it to be, it's actually pretty fun. It rewards other skills that having checkpoints would not reward otherwise. If I had a checkpoint here, then dying wouldn't really have any severe impacts, because if you died, let's say right here, you could just restart here. There's not much to complete after that, so it's just a walk in the park. But since there's no checkpoints, in a way it feels longer than it really is, because you're focused on perfecting it and you're dying over and over again. I'd say the average time to probably complete this level would be like 30 minutes, 40, and that's with the strict timer, like I said, that I'm going to introduce. So now I'm going to talk about some of the things that I mentioned in the first part of the video that I have combated here. And also to note that even though there's no checkpoints here, there will obviously be save after you complete the level. If there were no checkpoints at all, that would actually kind of be horrible. As per the difficulty part, I don't think that the difficulty will have any effect on the quality of the game. I actually feel that if this was easier, then the game wouldn't be as fun. Through this and having the timer, like I said, I want the player to die over and over again, which sounds weird, but it's for a good reason. And obviously on your first playthrough, you're not gonna play the level perfectly. You have to learn and figure everything out, so you're gonna die obviously a bunch of times. But as you continue, you'll learn the different routes and the best possible things and courses of actions to take as you're playing the level. So this is probably one of my favorite levels I've made, all around the no checkpoints gimmick. And to be honest, I think I'm gonna keep checkpoints out of this game. I think having no checkpoints creates different ways of thinking for level design, gameplay, and how we build and stuff like that. Anyways, thanks for watching my video. This is one of my favorite videos I've ever done. It is pretty cool to always document how I go through making levels and I guess just analyzing video games and applying it to my game. It's pretty cool that this gimmick of no checkpoints can evolve into something so beautiful. And hopefully this video can inspire, I guess, content of that same idea, and maybe somebody else will implement this gimmick into their games, which many people have, not saying that they haven't. But I think it's nice and I would like to see it in more games and levels. But with that, I am out.